That's right, everybody. It's finally here. A long-requested episode that I'm surprised I haven't done by now. It's an episode that I'm super excited to finally be doing, and that is My Hero Academia characters as fish. No, wait, sorry. Why would that even jump into my head? That's not today's episode at all. I mean, I'm using My Hero Academia characters. I guess that's something I could consider at some point, but I don't know why that would be the thing that jumps into my brain. Anyway, today's video is actually My Hero Academia Ben 10 fusions. Or sorta, what if My Hero Academia characters were Ben 10 aliens? Ben 10 and My Hero Academia are two of the staples of this channel that I go to all the time for inspiration on things to draw, and turning characters from those series into different things. So it just makes sense to kinda fuse those things together. I'm gonna design the fusions and write some backstory and lore for some of these characters to make this new Ben 10 My Hero Academia fusion universe. And if this video goes well and does well enough, maybe I'll do another and continue expanding this universe. The most likely way that's gonna happen is if lots of people hit the like button to help with algorithm stuff, and if anyone who's new here hits the subscribe button so they can see when that video possibly eventually comes out. But for now, it's time to jump into the first drawing, and as I'm saying this, I'm trying to think of something to say other than let's go, because I've been saying that in every video lately. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. But nothing's coming to me, so let's go. The universe is a vast place with thousands of worlds bearing billions of kinds of strange and incredible beings. And while many of these beings have incredible abilities as a result of their species, only a select few can qualify to become licensed intergalactic heroes. One of the first steps in becoming a hero is attending the Universal Academy of Heroes, where young saviors can train to use their powers to protect beings from all across space. Ben Midoria had always wanted to be a hero, but had almost no chance. He was a human of Earth and had no kinds of inherent abilities that could warrant him as a contender for enrollment at UAH. It seemed there was no hope, as to the best of all Earthlings' knowledge, no human had ever gotten into the school. But this wasn't strictly true. Ben's idol was the Mighty X, one of the greatest heroes ever known. And he'd been stationed in Ben's galaxy, making regular rescues on Earth. And he was actually human, though he didn't look it because of a device that he wore called the Omni Unas, which had been passed down to him by his predecessor. It gave him the abilities of 10 great alien heroes who'd come before him, and while wearing it, he maintained the appearance of a great celestial sapien, hence why nobody knew he was originally from Earth. But Ben would soon find this out. One day, while the Mighty X was on Earth fighting an alien monster that had invaded Ben's city, X witnessed Ben saving people from the rubble, and even trying once to distract the monster to give X a better shot at it. This seemed like a stars aligning moment for X, as he'd been using the Omni Unas for too long, and it was now slowly killing him. He needed to pass it on to someone else, and he deemed Ben to be the perfect choice. Ben was obviously exhilarated, but it would take years of training before he was able to make full use of all the alien powers he now possessed. In fact, in the early stages, using the powers for more than a few seconds would seriously injure Ben. And the Mighty X, now powerless, could only teach the boy so much. He needed to go to a proper school to get full control over his gifts. And so after months of working with the Mighty X, Ben applied and was accepted to the Universal Academy of Heroes, beginning the best and most difficult years of his life. Now, while there were many excited to see a new, alleged celestial sapien making their way to UAH, there was someone at the school who was not so thrilled. In fact, Backburn, a Pyronite with an explosive set of abilities and an explosive temper, was furious and confused, as he actually recognized Ben. See, Ben had gone to many intergalactic hero conventions to learn about and meet real-life heroes, and Backburn had crossed his path at many of those, many times. He He'd always scoff at Ben for being there, knowing that humans were a powerless race, and that he'd never have any chance of getting into UAH. And while Ben did now look different enough, Backburn recognized his voice and his hair and his frustratingly optimistic attitude. Initially, he wouldn't understand how Ben got his powers, and at school Ben wore gauntlets that concealed the Omni Unas so people wouldn't connect his power set directly to the Mighty X. But eventually Backburn would figure it out and be all the more outraged that the Mighty X had chosen to pass his abilities onto a scrawny little human when there were so many more powerful aspiring heroes he could have picked. It would be some time before he revealed to Ben that he knew he was a human, but he'd still make it his mission to surpass Ben at every step. Of course, this was difficult, not only because Ben had the powers of Celestial Sapien, but because Ben's determination matched Backburn's, and the harder the Pyronite would work, the more that would push Ben to do even more to stay on top. But Backburn's skills weren't something to be overlooked. He had all the inherent abilities of a Pyronite, but further enhanced by his slightly mutated physiology. He had massive forearms shaped almost like cannons, out of which he could channel explosive fire blasts, far more powerful than that of an average Pyronite. These blasts also made him faster than others of his kind. Pyronites can fly by shooting fire from their hands, but Backburn could blast with such incredible ferocity that he could rocket himself around at near lightning speeds. This power paired with his determination would make him a formidable adversary for Ben, and their rivalry would last through all their time at the Universal Academy. Here's a mid-video fun fact that a lot of people seem to not know, because I got a lot of baffled comments about this in my first Marvel Mandalorians episode, but YouTubers get to decide where, when, and how many mid-roll ads play in our videos. So for a video that's less than 20 minutes long, I usually put one in at the halfway point around here. I mean, they don't always play where we want them to, but generally speaking, they will. So, the more you know. And sorry to anyone who hates having ads interrupting the videos, but having one in there means that, I can afford to do this for a living and do 2 videos a week. Sometimes more. Anyway, this was a weird intermission to throw in, but let's just get back into the next 2 drawings. Let's go! Now, while Ben would find a rival in Bakugo, he would make many genuine friendships in his time at the Academy as well. One was with an aspiring hero who would eventually go by the name Frogjaw, inspired by human vernacular. See, Frogjaw was a rare subspecies of Piscus volin called Rene volin. Well, many of her kind had traits similar to what humans would be familiar with as fish. Frogjaw shared more traits with earth frogs. She could leap incredible distances, stick to walls, and had a long, sticky tongue that could be used for movement, attacking, or carrying things. Along with this, she also had the more common traits of her species. Even without the tail common to her kind, she could swim nearly 70 knots on arriving at UAH, and was likely to improve far beyond that during her years at school. Her jaw was powerful enough to snap through solid steel, and in general, she had strength far beyond that of an average human. Frogjaw was never the most outspoken or attention-grabbing hero at school, but through her years, she would show just how impressive her abilities were, and she'd eventually make a fantastic guardian for her corner of the universe. Now, with the first 2 drawings in this video, I had enough backstory written for them that I didn't need to do any design notes, or I didn't feel like I should go into design notes. But for these next 2, the lore is a little bit shorter, so, I can do this and talk about what I was thinking while I was drawing the characters. Froppy and Ripjaws here was my favorite one to do for this video, and I almost didn't do it. It was actually the last character I drew, because I've worked a lot with both Froppy and Ripjaws, but eventually I just couldn't help myself and not do it, because Ripjaws is genuinely one of my favorite characters ever to draw. Not just Ben 10 characters, just in general. And I didn't realize how much I love drawing him until a few times ago, like maybe when I was drawing him mixed with Carnage for one of my live streams. But he's just so fun. I love his face, I love his proportions. Just so cool. And mixing him with some of Froppy's frog-like elements was a lot of fun as well. Now, I wasn't planning on doing full fleshed out backgrounds for all these characters, but as I was drawing the first one for this video, which I actually first drew Bakugo mixed with Heatblast, which was suggested by a subscriber named God of Speed 02, while I was doing that one, I just felt inspired to do the background, and I think for that one and for this one, it works out really well. Maybe not so much for some of the other ones, but either way, I think it really helps this piece look really cool and dynamic. Hope you all agree. Here's the finished version. Another of Ben's classmates who he'd become friends with, but who would actually become closer than most to Backburn, was Diamondhead. He was a rare breed of Petrosapien born with a red body instead of the traditional turquoise or blue. Riot's planet of Petropia had, for a time, been a wasteland, destroyed by the tyrant Omnigax. But he'd been raised off-world by his parents, who'd fled prior to that event. He grew up around species from all across the universe, many of whom were impressed and fascinated by his species. They were a rare breed, and him more so for his unusual coloring. Well, initially he had no abilities beyond his fellow species mates' usual ones, but he'd train hard to enhance his inherent skills to their peak. This would be enough to get him into UAH, being only the second of his kind to get into the school after his personal hero, Crystal Riot, off whom he based his name. Well, at school he'd develop a super ability that he didn't even know his species could achieve, which he called his unbreakable state. His entire body would shift into a rippled, jagged version of its usual self, and he'd become completely immune to any damage for a brief time. He'd truly become an icon of his species, and eventually, with Ben and some other heroes' help, he'd eventually manage to restore life to his once destroyed planet. Now this is the one drawing of the video where I really wish I hadn't done the full background and had instead spent more time working on the design, because this one I look at and I go, it's fine. Like, I like the rendering enough. Some parts on the rendering I actually really like. I did the inking for the diamondy parts in a darker red color so it feels a little bit more translucent, and because everything is so rigid on his diamond-like body, I could make some parts really sharp and jagged, specifically on his abs and torso. I really like that part, but overall I think the design is just a bit meh. Also, the pose isn't super interesting or anything. It's not as fun as some of the other ones in this video, and I don't think this background, which is a fairly generic one in terms of what I often draw, especially in my space-focused videos lately, like my Mandalorian episodes, I just don't think it adds that much. I mean, I don't mean to be bashing this one that hard. Again, I still generally like how it turns out, but I think I could have made the design a bit more interesting, which is a downer note to end this video on, so I'm sorry about that, but overall I hope you enjoyed this drawing and the video in general. Here's the finished piece. Well, there it is, a video that I probably should have done on this channel a while ago, given the kind of content that I usually do. If people want another round of this, I'm definitely open to it. I had a bunch of other ideas. I'd kinda wanted to do Way Big mixed with Mount Lady for this episode, but she's not as big of a character as, well, you know, pun not intended there, but she's not as popular or as big a part of the series as the other characters I was working with today. I also haven't done tons of stuff with villains from either series, and I get lots of requests for My Hero Academia villain stuff, so make sure to leave suggestions in the comments below. And of course, if you want more Ben 10 or My Hero Academia content, I've got tons of that on the channel. I've turned characters from both into dragons, I've venomized them, I've put characters from both into Dungeons & Dragons, and I've done lots of fusion stuff, specifically with Marvel and DC characters. Got a whole universe of that building out. But for now, that's all for today. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'm Christian Pearson. This has been PopCross Studios, home of the nerdiest art videos on YouTube. Videos come out on Fridays and Mondays, so I will see you all in the next video on... When is this going out? This is going out Monday, so I'll see you all on Friday. Goodbye.